Are you looking for creative ideas for your steep hillside landscape? Obviously, a retaining wall or terraces are always a possibility, and sometimes they are necessary for safety, stability. But in this video, I want to go beyond these and provide you with some creative ideas to explore and consider that may not be the first things that come to mind. And if you do plan to include terraces, perhaps you can level them up with some of the ideas in this video, like artwork, built-in seating, maybe the wall itself can actually be seating, or maybe there's places to sit containers. Now, I want to mention that if you want to learn how to stabilize hillside plantings or how to design gardens and landscapes on a slope or in steep spaces, I get more into the how-to details in some of my other videos in this playlist. So I've got an entire playlist. I will link to that in the description below this video so you can find all those videos in one place. Remember that these ideas are starting points and you should definitely customize them to match your style, your needs, your space, using various resources, plants, materials. Landscaping in steep spaces can be very challenging or even dangerous, so please always do additional research and remember that it's always up to you to determine what's best for you and your landscape. Now, simply navigating a steep landscape safely can be challenging, but there are various ways to incorporate pathways that can vary from an easy afternoon project to something very, very complex. It is possible to stabilize simple pathways or prevent mulch from washing downhill just by using materials like rocks and logs, maybe things that you already have on site. To level up a pathway on a slope, incorporate landings. Not only do landings create an opportunity to change the direction of a path, or create switchbacks as some call them, but landings create an opportunity to pause and rest, and they can include features like seating areas, interesting focal points, art, a chance to enjoy a view, or perhaps they can be expanded and just become an outdoor space with an additional purpose built into the hillside just along that journey through the space. Steps and stairs become necessary when pathways must be steep, and style and material possibilities are numerous when it comes to steps. But please remember that steps and wheels do not mix. They seriously limit accessibility, and don't forget that it's pretty difficult to spread mulch in your garden bed when you can't use a wagon or a wheelbarrow. Maintenance must be considered anytime you plan to install a staircase. One of my favorite tricks, and perhaps the simplest way to creatively increase the safety and comfort of a steep landscape, is to incorporate railings. Railings, simple as that, they're great for outdoor living spaces anytime there's a big step or any kind of drop off or along any path through the space. Obviously, railings are required in certain contexts, and you can do some additional research into whatever your local regulations are. I know you could live anywhere in the world, but even if you're just making a very simple pathway down the hill, if you're a do-it-yourselfer and you want to level up the space slightly, add some railings. They can be simple and practical, or they can be very elaborate features. They can be designed for any style of landscape. They can be nearly invisible to preserve your view, perhaps from a deck, a patio, anywhere you're hanging out, a view out a window. Or you could get really creative and incorporate color, artwork, plantings, play. The sky's the limit. Additionally, other elements can sometimes act as railings as long as they are properly secured. Railings can be trellises. They can be raised planters. They can be any piece of artwork that's the right shape that it can be secured. Instead of a normal railing, maybe your railing can also be a counter or a bar where people can sit and enjoy the view, or even an outdoor kitchen, which is great at the edge of a patio or a deck. A taller panel or a trellis can simultaneously act as a railing and provide privacy to your decks or your seating areas. So if there's a certain angle from which you might want a little bit more privacy or a sound barrier, make the railing also your privacy solution. And if you plan to add a fence for pets, privacy, security, maybe this fence can be placed right along a pathway so it can also act as a railing. Elevated, floating, or even multi-level decks are definitely in the higher budget category, but they can sometimes be the best way to expand your level spaces if your yard is steep. It can be stunning to plant trees right below these decks on the downhill of these decks. Even when the trees are smaller, you're elevated over the canopy and you can enjoy the sound of the leaves, seasonal blooms, fall colors from a unique vantage point. As larger trees fill in, then your deck can feel almost like a treehouse where you can look out and into the branches. Now, if you would like help selecting a tree to create an effect like this, or help researching other plant possibilities, I created a mini course a free mini course. It's called How to Choose the Perfect Plant. It teaches you how to research plant possibilities and how to determine if you're putting the right plant in the right place. So there's a checklist of considerations that you can follow. Again, it's free. Check it out. Linked in the description below. Decks can also wrap around plantings too, which can create a fantastic effect. Again, you want to do careful plant research when selecting trees and plants for this type of space, because you don't want anything with slippery leaves, anything that'll drip sap or goop onto your deck or, throw thorns at you. So do some plant research, but there are many beautiful options, though, of trees that can grow closer to structures like decks. Decks also don't need to be simple squares, rectangles. Perhaps design an elevated bridge of sorts that connects one outdoor living space to another, or an actual bridge. Another fantastic way to level up your steep landscape is to create elevated walkways that hover above certain parts of the landscape. These can take you on a journey through the space and create opportunities for interesting views of plantings. They can be particularly enticing if they end at a destination, perhaps another outdoor living space, or somewhere you enjoy spending time. Rectangles, squares, and angles can sometimes be the most affordable shapes for projects like this. It can depend, but incorporating circular cuts into the hillside or other spaces with informal shapes can be quite creative. Now I would like to share one of my personal favorite sources of inspiration for steep spaces. But first, I am excited to announce that this video has a sponsor. BetterHelp. Just about everything relates to mental health, and landscaping is no exception. Landscaping can be very stressful, something that needs to be managed, but it can also be a fun way to relieve stress and to create something beautiful. Therapy is a safe space where you can share what's on your mind, whether it's stress or sadness or worries or relationship issues, all without fear of judgment. Starting therapy is easy with BetterHelp. Fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple days. Anyone can benefit from therapy. And seeking therapy is actually a sign of strength and self-awareness. It takes a lot of courage and strength to acknowledge when you need some help and to take steps to improve your mental health. So if you think you'd benefit from therapy, click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/gardenproject and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Thank you, and thank you to BetterHelp for supporting this channel so I can keep on making videos about how we can make the world a better place through what we do in our backyards. Now, one of my favorite ways to collect ideas and inspiration for steep landscapes is to look at treehouse inspiration. And I'm not just saying that you should incorporate a treehouse into your space, although you definitely could. In fact, let's consider that our next idea. Consider a treehouse. Maybe your decks can expand out and into the trees, wrap around some of them. Just another idea. But I am saying that treehouses incorporate tons of unique ideas that are often elevated above the landscape in some way. A great way to inspire ideas for your steep space. So perhaps there could be a slide pole or, a fire pole from one level to another. Maybe there could be a bridge, a loft net in your landscape. Maybe you could include a pulley system that lowers snacks or beverages to your guests on the patio below. These interactive elements can make your yard very fun and unique and memorable. They don't always need to be complicated or high budget, and they can be adapted to various styles. Of course, these elements are particularly fun for kids, which leads me to my next topic. Kids do not necessarily require level spaces to enjoy time outside. Safety in steep spaces is incredibly important, and assuming you take all of the necessary safety precautions, here are a few ways to add some whimsy and play to steep spaces. Instead of the common elevated play structure, perhaps you can build your play structure into the hillside. Slides, climbing walls, climbing nets, or loft nets, fire poles, so on. Work with gravity and add some sweeping tracks for any toys with wheels. So these could be old gutters, upcycled wood. They're even more fun if kids can move them around. Nature play spaces and playgrounds are incredible sources of inspiration as well. They utilize natural materials like logs, boulders. And areas to create a mess can sometimes be the most fun. I have many fond memories of digging up little trenches in the yard, and then I would dump a bucket of water into them, and then I would see how the water moved through that space. Then I would clog up my rivers with rocks and sticks and then wash them out again. I learned a lot about water flow, preventing erosion in this process. It affects the work I do today. Just don't forget that it can be as simple as having a space set aside where it's okay to make a mess. Even some parks are incorporating low-flow faucets in sandy areas for this type of play, ideally with an automatic shutoff. A space and access to materials to build miniature gardens, nature play doll houses, fairy houses, and similar. These also don't require a lot of space And the area uphill of a pathway can actually be a really comfortable place to reach and play. Hideaways, playhouses, forts can be easily built into hillsides, and something as simple as a grassy hill that you can roll down, that can still be plenty of fun. Now, if you have a hill that slopes up and above where you plan to spend a lot of your time, then you have an opportunity to create a fantastic view. So design plantings thoughtfully, perhaps incorporate an interesting focal point, because it'll be very easy to see. And an example of a focal point, a water feature. All types of water features are stunning in these spaces because you can see so much of them. It could be a waterfall, fountain, or you can have a creek with little pools that meander their way down the hill. Another great source of inspiration for steep landscapes, vertical gardening. Also, if you live on a hill and you want to grow annual vegetables, look into small space edible gardening and vertical vegetable gardening resources. These can all help you generate all kinds of ideas that can sometimes translate into other parts of your landscape. Remember that plants can grow up walls, they can hang down walls, you can look into living walls where things are planted actually into the wall. Planting pockets, hanging planters, containers or garden beds can be built into walls or railings in various forms, and we've already talked about trellises. Just think carefully about the vertical space and view that as an opportunity to create different styles or effects. I also want to mention that it can sometimes be nice to have spaces that are a little bit more closed in and cozy, especially in the steepest of landscapes where everything can feel a little bit exposed. Overhead shade and cover from the rain, something that blocks the wind, having a space maybe built into the hillside, all of this can make spending time outside much more comfortable. I mentioned this at the beginning, but I want to say it again. Sometimes the simplest way to level up your landscape on a slope or to stabilize new plantings is to use organic materials, things you might already have on site. This can be as simple as placing the right rock or a series of smaller rocks just below a plant to hold mulch and soil in place until that plant can get established. Or maybe a rock can help to create a level space to set a piece of art. Rock gardening projects can be simple and affordable, or incredibly complex and expensive, but rocks are very commonly used to stabilize hillsides because they're heavy. They help hold stuff in place. But also they're heavy, so be careful. But if you have them on site, definitely learn ways that you can integrate them into the space. Dry stone walling is a technique that I would like to note. If you are a do-it-yourselfer, this is worth studying. It's an art and a science. Large logs, carefully secured so they don't roll, can act as small retaining walls for pathways or for plantings, and you can use log rounds for the same purpose. And remember that decomposing wood in the right places can be incredible for supporting beneficial wildlife in your garden. I talk more about these materials in my video on how to stabilize hillside plantings, but I want to mention it again here because there are so many incredible creative possibilities with these common materials. In fact, I would love to hear what you have done with organic materials on site. Please share in the comments below, or please share any other ideas or sources of inspiration that you have for steep or hillside landscapes, because this video is never going to include all of the possibilities. So please share with others in the comments below. And all of this being said, please do not forget that plants are incredible at holding soil and mulch in place. Don't forget the plants. I have other videos all about the plants. Plant densely, plant in layers, plant a diversity of different species with different characteristics and root types so they can all work together to help hold the soil and the mulch in place. Please note that planting densely does not necessarily mean that your landscape must look like a chaotic jungle. You can apply best practices to any landscaping style. And if you're new here, hello and welcome to Garden Project Academy. My name is Eve, and I help do-it-yourselfers who are starting new projects to design their own landscape, to have more successful projects, and to make the world a better place with this opportunity that you have to do some landscaping. For whatever reason, there seems to be a bit of a shortage of resources all about, landscaping on a slope. So I hope that this video has provided you with a ton of ideas beyond terraces or plant ground covers, which are great ideas, but there's so much more that you can do to play to the strengths of your space. Now, if you want to dive deeper into designing hillside plantings, how to stabilize new plantings on the slope, I will make sure the entire playlist pops up on the screen right now. It's also linked in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and happy gardening!